Put your hands up together for
me. They can't hear me.
How
about now? Still
one,
not.
Two, one, two.
There you
Okay.
go. Hey, really excited to be here. First of all, I wanted to say congratulations to the Cosmoverse team for putting this on, because hosting events is hard, and hosting an event like this, of this caliber, is even harder. So let's give them a big round of applause. I'd like to now invite my panel up on the stage. So guys, come on up. And we're going to be talking about the rise of AEZ. As we're getting ready here, we're saying that our goal is to make this tweet-worthy of the event. So get your phones out, get your spice emojis ready, and let's get started. So I'd like to give the opportunity to everybody to introduce themselves, starting to my right.
Okay, yeah, won't take long. Hi everybody, Khai here, partner at Longhash Ventures. We've been bootstrapping ecosystems since 2018, and right now really excited to be running the AEZ accelerator.
I'm Avril, also known as Spade, and I'm one of the early contributors to the Neutron network, which is, as I'm sure you're aware, the first consumer chain and a cross-chain small contracting platform.
I'm Riley. I'm one of the co-founders of Stride Labs. We build safe and minimal liquid staking infrastructure for Cosmos.
Hi, I'm Hello. Hi, I'm Jelena. I'm the co-founder of Noble. I've been a Cosmos contributor for the past few years, and excited to be part of this panel.
Great. So I think we need to start with some simple definitions here. And I'm sure there is a very simple and straightforward definition for this, as for everything in Cosmos, right? We know exactly what that means, Cosmos, right? Interchain, it's clear. AEZ, what is AEZ? And maybe to reference some interesting sort of Twitter semi-drama in the last couple of days, Jack Zampolin tweeted that IST was part of AEZ. Is it? But yeah, broadly, what is AEZ in all of your view?
How should we do this?
Yeah. Who wants to start?
I'll take it. I think when the AEZ name was coined, the definition was fairly simple and straightforward. AEZ is the Cosmos Hub plus all of those chains that are very deeply aligned with it on both a security, economical, and political level through the means of replicated security, right? So today, in practice, that's Stride, that's Neutron, Noble soon, and any other chain that makes a proposal and gets approved to launch on replicated security. Now, I think what Jack and others are hinting at with this is that the hub has relationship with other chains that are outside of the AEZ, and that's completely fine, right? The Atom Economic Zone refers to this subset of Cosmos. It doesn't intend to replace Cosmos. But I wouldn't say that AST is part of AEZ currently. I would say it's part of the interchain economy, which the hub plays a very large role into.
So for a lot of people that know me, I think political analogies are something that I like to reference. Sunny is another person that loves to talk about political analogies. Ethan as well. I think in Cosmos, we like to talk a lot about sovereignty, and a lot of those times, inevitably real world political systems come up. So let me throw one political analogy out there and kind of see where it lands, as it relates to the Atom Economic Zone. So recently there were sort of discussions, Atom is a fee token on different app chains. For example, Atom is being used as a fee token on Osmosis more and more, which is great to see. But I think this doesn't necessarily kind of paint the whole picture, right? So, for example, if you have a country like, let's say, Venezuela, that has, the US dollar as a core kind of bedrock, of their economy, does that mean sort of Venezuela and the US have kind of close economic ties? Not necessarily, right? It's not to say that the US dollar is not effective in the country of Venezuela, but it's just to say that there are ways that we can sort of measure kind of economic relationships between, different kind of sovereign entities. And it's the same thing with the Atom Economic Zone. So it's a bit of a spectrum, and I think, speaking to that spectrum, there's different ways of sort of assessing that economic tie.
I think another analogy actually that we could use is like, kind of like the organizations of the world, right? So like, I think I see AEZ as a bit of like the European Union in a way, whereby like you have states together, where each chain is a state, right? And these can have like very deep relationship with other countries. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be part of the union itself, right? You can have like very layered sort of like relationships between the various entities. So yeah, that's how I would see it.
Well, if I may add, the counter example to what is AEZ is what is not in the AEZ, right? And I think that's actually quite clear. I think what we see today with Neutron, right, having a 25% share with the hub, and Stride having a 15% revenue share. There's a very clear economic relationship whereby the growth of Neutron and the growth of Stride is directly benefiting the hub and Atom, right? And sure, like you might have some applications that indirectly help, drive demand of Atom, drive utility of Atom, but it's not so tightly and clear, like with a contractual agreement that is sanctioned or legitimized by an entire governance community. I think that part of that legitimacy is what forms the foundation of the AEZ. And of course, I mean, that's to draw a line, right? But that does not mean that it is a static kind of thing, and also doesn't mean that new people can come and join, right? The whole idea is that as more people find alignment or find ways to align with the hub, then they can also form these opt-in contractual obligations and then be part of AEZ.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think it comes down to what are the goals of the Cosmos Hub? What are the goals of Atom? What are the value accrual methods? And yes, ICS is one of those, but I don't think it's the primary method. I think the main value accrual method for Atom is its moneyness. So to the extent that chains in the interchain support the moneyness of Atom, they are in the AEZ. Now that may be through ICS, but primarily it's through driving on-chain usage of Atom. And of course, Neutron and Stride are doing that through liquid staking and through DeFi activity, and also through driving revenue back to the hub directly. But there are other chains in the ecosystem that drive value to Atom through moneyness, through promoting it as a store of value. Roll back the clock 12 months, and the only thing you could do with your Atom was swap it on osmosis, LP it on osmosis. So the AEZ of 12 months ago was basically just osmosis. And flash forward to today, and Atom is used as a store of value on Mars, it's collateral on Umi, it's collateral on Levana, it's used across a suite of DeFi applications across the ecosystem. And that's why I think this question of identity is rising to the fore. Until today, Atom has been all about liquidity, and finally it's about real usage. So Atom is going through this question of identity. How do we define ourselves? Where do the boundaries lie? And ultimately, I would put a pin in it as saying any chain that drives on-chain usage of Atom is part of the AEZ, to the extent that it does that.
But isn't this like recreating another name for something that we already had a name for, which is Cosmos?
Well, there are chains who use the Cosmos tech stack, but have nothing to do with Atom. Now, I would argue that those
and that would be the interchain in my book.
Interchain.
Yeah,
right.
We have
everything
a
is
bit
super
of a taxonomy
clear. All the
problem.
definitions are like really pinpointed, on point, and everything. So I think we can maybe lay this question to the rest. But I think what I'm hearing is that AEZ is more about economic activity than actual security. That security is one of the products of the hub, and I want to talk about.
Well, it goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Sorry, can I just jump in here? Because so I mean, it's the first question, and there's already quite a bit of debate even within the panel, which is great to see. I think there needs to be like some threshold, or at least like a burden for at which point do you join the AEZ, right? Like, and this was sort of what I was trying to get at with my political analogy, to say that Atom is used in these different DeFi protocols, in different dexes, like. That's great. I mean, that's a legacy reason. It's the reason mostly because there's a lot of integration points. It's easy to buy on centralized exchanges, et cetera. But that shouldn't be sort of the burden of proof. I think it should be a lot higher. And I think maybe that's what we can sort of discuss. Like, at what point, yes, I mean, all of these projects are within the interchain, within the Cosmos ecosystem, but the AEZ is something more confined and requires a higher sort of threshold at which you enter the AEZ, right? Like, it should be something to almost aspire to at a certain point. Can't just be sort of granted. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the the products of the hub. Like we've talked about security as one of those products, and for those who didn't see Everett Capital's talk this morning, he was comparing it also, like making this political analogy to countries with very stable property rights as countries that typically flourish, and Adam has sort of codified these very strong digital property rights, and that can lead it to becoming a sort of a stable economic zone. But it has to have more than just property rights. It has to offer products, maybe services, in the same way that like a country or any nation state offers to its citizens, businesses operating there, certain frameworks, legal frameworks, infrastructure, services, etc. So what are the products that the hub, currently have, obviously ICS, but what are the other products that the hub should offer chains that are part of the Atom economic zone?
I think for now, I think today the hub has a few existing products, e.g. its stake, right? A very high degree of economic security, which is it is able to monetize through replicated security. Its validator set, which is also kind of like the most established validator set in the Cosmos. And I think there's a number of, and obviously like Atom itself, right? The token is, and its liquidity is kind of like the ultimate hub product, I guess. I think there's another few ways that the hub can monetize that we're going to head towards in the future. And I think one of them is kind of like this idea of distributing Atom, so like liquidity as a service, and potentially also other ways to distribute its validator set, right? So today we allow the hub to lend its validator set to other chains through that want to be like proof of stake chains through replicated security. Similar mechanisms could be used to basically use the validator set for example, like sequencing rollups, right? You want to decentralize your rollup? Well, here's a sequencer set, and with an embedded lead selection mechanisms through proof of stake on the hub, basically. So there's a number of kind of like offers that the hub can compile that don't derive from its current offering, and that can be used to complete this sort of like set to really bring the other chains and projects flexibly into the AEZ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to throw something out there, which is a little bit more esoteric and intangible, but I think still important, but a good narrative for their partners, right? This is something you see in Ethereum and in other kind of layer 1, layer 2 ecosystems. There's a very clear relationship between sort of the kind of underlying protocol and applications built on top. Obviously in Cosmos we have the app chain model, so it's a bit different, but a clear narrative for consumer chains that decide to be part of their sort of security model. Making sure there's a clear understanding of why the validator set is making this trade-off, because there is a trade-off. Deciding to support Stride or Neutron or hopefully Noble in the future is a trade-off to supporting other chains. So a good narrative is something that I think would be very valuable to their consumer chains and something I'd be interested in.
I agree. I think there's potentially one more, one thing that the hub should definitely equip itself to do really, really well, and that I think it's on the right track to do, but that could even become a business eventually, is just excellence at governance, right? Having all of the infrastructure, the frameworks for making decisions that are very high in quality and that are sort of made in a predictable, reliable way, so that, one of the risks to ICS right now is that on-chain governance is not particularly known for its reliability, predictability, and such. To an extent, that's a good property, but when you sort of start having these very long-term, very deep relationship with other chains, and that's something that you want to found kind of the core business of the hub around, you do need to move in that sort of era of stability, right? The hub as the anchor in the trashing sea, because otherwise you add risk, and therefore you sort of reduce the rewards that the hub could get, right? You want the consumer chains to have absolutely no concerns, the consumer chains and other partners, to be fair, to have absolutely no concerns about the hub, right? The hub is the most trusted partner, and as a result of this, they're willing to give up more basically because there's no perception of risk. There's only what the hub actually brings them, right? So security, alignment with the rest of the ecosystem, distribution, mindshare, all of these things, right? So I think, governance would be another like excellence at governance would be another thing that I think can even become like a business model eventually.
Yeah, if I can expand on the governance bit, right? I think this starts to get into the social aspect of the AEZ, right? It's not only about the hard products like the validator set and the Atom liquidity, the tokens themselves, but also if you start to go outside of the Cosmos ecosystem, and why should another application or another L2 or app chain decide maybe they want to borrow some of the minds and brains and community of Cosmos is because of this plurality. Like, we are diverse. We are not just so in consensus all the time. We have differing leaders and clusters and views. And this is invaluable if we want a resilient, decentralized ecosystem. And so this is the foundation of a robust Cosmos AEZ, which can also be exported to other ecosystems that may need it and eventually see its crucial importance.
It's part of the reason some of the new chains are coming over. I think talking to the DYDX team, the legal defensibility around having a very decentralized validator set is a big reason why they decided to come to Cosmos.
Well, I mean, I'll speak from Noble's perspective, but the main reason we're opting into interchain security or replicated security v1 is partially because of the decentralized nature of the validator set. Yes, the high market cap of Atom gives a strong guarantee to a generic issuance chain that is issuing USDC now and set up to issue other native assets in the future, but having sort of more regulated, compliant, large entities kind of come into Cosmos, they need a place to land where the validator set isn't, necessarily is decentralized and not centralized. It has a large distribution of validators from a geographic perspective. So this decentralization piece and really like celebrating, how far we've come from a governance perspective, from a node infrastructure perspective is also very important. Thought I'd throw that in there, not necessarily AEZ related, but I wanted to plug in that piece.
Thanks. So one of the things we've talked about here is security as sort of one of the main points and one of the main things that that the AEZ provides its partner chains. The crypto security scaling design space right now is full of lots of great innovations. Obviously, we have like data availability is one, restaking with things like eigenlayer, mesh security, and again, pointing back to Effort Capital's talk this morning, he was talking about how security would become commoditized. I think this has been coming for a long time. What is the unique sort of selling proposition if you're a project and you're looking for a chain on which to land, right? Like where you want to be secured, and you're considering maybe the hub, maybe Celestia, maybe Eigenlayer, or maybe some other like Ethereum roll-up style security. What should be the AEZ's unique value proposition? How do we market that to projects?
I think it's actually fairly easy to coin. The idea is that, like, for example, you can go on Ethereum, launch a rollup, and inherit your security from Ethereum, right? To benefit from, all of the liquidity distribution that you can get from the Ethereum base layer, you will be aligning with Ethereum, making concessions, making, efforts to appear Ethereum aligned and such, right? But in exchange, Ethereum will not be aligning with you. The Ethereum base layer wants to be credibly neutral. It will never take a bet for your specific rollup or another. And so, that's one given value proposition that is extremely valuable, and Ethereum is not making a mistake, but there are other sort of like trade-offs that you may want to be, right? Like the unique value proposition of the hub and replicated security is that like the hub explicitly aligns with you and is going to support you and is going to have like shared destiny with you, basically. So it wants you to be as successful as possible. And so I think that's like a very differentiated offering whereby it's not just you're getting a service agreement with security basically being provided to your chain. It's like, no, we're kind of like coming and building this like, AEZ, which is like a community of blockchains that share a mutual fate, essentially. And through this is where you get the distribution, the mindshare, potentially like decentralization even of your like token holder base, and security, and maybe in the future like liquidity as a service, right? There's like, yeah, I'll pause there, but I guess that's kind of like the main fundamental difference that I see between these offerings, right? Like your chain has a direct relationship with the security provider, which it doesn't have on Celestia, on Ethereum, or other mechanisms that intend to be like completely market-driven, formal, and not kind of like as social as replicated security is, at least today.
Avril mentioned a lot of them already, and liquidity as a service already live in the AEZ, expanding as we speak, proposals up, going up. But I think that the POL is a big part of it, but ICS is version 1 of Mesh. So it's differentiated from these other security provision agreements in the sense that it's not hierarchical. It's more of a partnership between chains. And I think that's one of the unique differentiators of the Cosmos and the interchain relative to something like restaking through eigenlayer, teams working together rather than one being the sole beneficiary and the other paying rent and being extracted from.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Riley said, it's a very flexible protocol. Obviously, this is just version 1 of interchain security or replicated security, but there is a sort of path to more of a mesh-style network. It's also so flexible that you can have a situation where you potentially have ETH as part of the security sort of guarantees of a mesh network. 5 to 10% of all, let's say, ETH market cap sort of coming into Cosmos, potentially staking their ETH, sort of like an eigenlayer type shared security model. That is very compatible with something like replicated security, or in the future, what will be mesh security. So the fact that you have this sort of partnership-based model, as Riley said, and this kind of opt-in nature, where it's a flexible sort of ever-expanding sort of shared security mechanism, is pretty unique within the overall kind of crypto landscape.
And the relationships between the partner and the consumer, provider, whatever you want to call it, they're evolving. I think the contracts that have been established today are very narrow. You pay some revenue, you get security, maybe you also get POL, maybe you get some auxiliary services like expedited audits, maybe you get discounted access to wallet integrations and custody solutions. There's a whole suite of auxiliary services that can be provided, but the main one is access to the store of value that is Atom through POL, and advancing DeFi through that liquidity injection that many chains in the Cosmos, frankly, are lacking, but Atom has available to give.
Yeah, agreed. If I may add, so, and the reason that will continue to grow is because there is alignment, right? In one sentence, right, credible neutrality is great, but it means it's impartial, it's inhuman, it's cold, it's just business. Right, but with the AEZ and how the alignment is done with the consumer chains, it's more like we want each other to win. It's not just credibly neutral, but like, oh yeah, come use my service. If you survive, if you do great. Yeah, if you don't, sorry. But in this case, we're cheering each other on. We're providing liquidity. We're helping with distribution. Right, it really forms a coalition that is inspired for mutual success, and that's the difference. And if I may add one more, this is the more kind of like positioning and software aspect, right? But there's also a more concrete reason, which is now we're starting to see atomic IBC. We saw the blog post. And now it means it's no longer just purely commoditized. We start to see also network effects formed from being able to form these like atomic bundles of transactions. And this forms a moat because even if you just move to another zone, you lose all that atomicity within that cluster of apps. So either this whole cluster has to rejoin a whole other one, or you have to find like a new partners to establish that. So it means that you're more sticky, more likely to be retained within the ecosystem, and inspired for mutual success.
I think there's an interesting point here, which is like beyond atomic IBC, which is a super interesting idea. I do think it's going to be interesting to see it develop and being researched. But like I think the exact same dynamic of you gain something when you join, and you potentially lose something if you leave, which seems fair game. Also applies to like Atom as money, essentially, right? Just like where the value in your chain ecosystem comes from, sort of like dictates your alignment in primarily financial systems. Like if Atom becomes one of the main stakeholders and injector of capital into these ecosystems, then it becomes like fairly, there's a strong disincentive to leave that zone and then lose, that sort of like cornerstone of your whole DeFi ecosystem as well. So I think, active participation in the market of the hub into these consumer chains is kind of like one of the core value propositions of replicated security, both for the hub and for the consumer chains.
The overwhelming thing that I'm hearing here is that good vibes. That's one of the key selling proposition is good vibes. We want your chain to succeed. Chains want each other to succeed. Yeah. Everybody's happy.
So, right. Well, conversely, good vibes should be a prerequisite to being part of the Atom economic zone.
There you go.
So
take
that at what you will.
So I want to. There's 4 minutes left, so I want to do rapid fire questions. I'm hoping to make these as spicy as possible. Is osmosis part of AEZ?
Right now?
Is the proposal up yet?
Not right now.
I don't know, make up your own mind.
So not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet, but
should
they can easily be part of the AEZ.
Should it be?
I think yes.
Would be great.
I'll bump on this. I think one of the things that is going to be tremendously tricky for the hub as a whole community to manage basically is that due to this super deep alignment within with the consumer chains, it creates one potential issue, which is internal competition. E.g., if you start introducing a lot of dissent and dissenting interests within the AEZ, you can potentially end up in a very bad outcome whereby the resources that are still limited of the hub are basically allocated in two ways, trying to achieve these two things, competing against each other, and therefore reaching worst outcomes. And so I think over time, the hub needs to sort of develop a framework of hey, what do we have in the AEZ? What do we need to to make it stronger, basically? And what is kind of redundant, or how can we have different types of relationships with other chains that perhaps are in this category, basically?
I mean, in true Cosmos fashion, more drama will inevitably entail, is what you're saying.
Indeed.
Yeah.
A feature, not a bug.
We can do an RFP kind of thing, right? Hey, we need this kind of function, this kind of module as part of AEZ. Hey, what are the options, right? And let it duke it out, let the drama happen, and then pick the winner almost.
So my next question is, can and should the hub secure roll-ups?
I think so. The rationale being that replicated security is an opportunity for the hub to create a small group of projects that it aligns very deeply with the upside of. And so as a result of this, you want the hub to have a choice over a large number of projects so that it can pick only the best ones and have that upside, that shared alignment with the best projects available. And so if we limit ourselves to CosmoverseHQ blockchains running on Tendermint, we're only getting a much smaller share or pool of projects, right? Whereas if the hub also is able to provide security to rollups, then it has this ability to choose from this new pool of of projects as well. So yeah, that would be my take on this.
Yeah, or through a consumer zone that is smart contract enabled, not directly.
Yep.
I'm surprised that you would say that because, why not do a roll-up on Neutron, right? Because now you would need to then deploy contracts, and how do you verify proofs, or have a shrine bridge? And
So I guess some alpha where, the idea, one of the ideas that we want to propose, and sort of one of the kind of core driving mindset and thesis that has driven Neutron and the AEZ as a whole is kind of this idea of you want to synthesize, not divide projects, right? And so one of the things that we're seeing develop in the ecosystem is Celestia is coming, and there's concerns about oh, is Celestia going to displace Atom and such. And I don't think that's the right mindset. I think the right mindset is hey, how can we maximize the benefits for both so that we bring Celestia, we bring rollups, we bring DA, we bring TIA into the Cosmos ecosystem, into the Atom economic zone, so that the hub as well benefits from it, right? And so Neutron is at least, well, not Neutron itself, but Hadron Labs is working on a couple of developments in this regard that should help kind of bring Celestia into the AEZ in a way. So
we've got 30 seconds. So my last question is, should the hub be acquiring chains, and if so, which are the best candidates currently out there to be acquired by the hub and brought into ICS?
Stargaze?
Stargaze?
Yeah, Stargaze is awesome. So.
Is anybody from Stargaze out here?
No cheers here.
But I mean, like, it has to be consensual, right?
Yeah.
E.g., like, is Stargaze like willing to be as part of the AZ? I think that's the thing that for the two communities to discuss together, basically. But yeah, I think they would make sense.
Any other ideas of chains we should be acquiring? I mean, it could be also apps outside of Cosmos, right? That just we want to bring into the AZ.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot more of a technical lift. I think the main thing is like, what does the AZ need to be better than it currently is, basically, right? So like that should be the framework for choosing.
Maybe that's actually the last question here, and we've got 20 seconds. Maybe we could push it a little bit further. But what does the AZ actually need to succeed? And I'll ask everybody to maybe keep it under 20 seconds.
Well, I think this is almost a broader question of like what, not even just AEZ, but what does Cosmos need, right? And actually, I was really inspired by Sunny's talk about the interchain accounts and the account hub and leapfrogging the smart contract experience that we see on EVM. I think that interchain UX is still a huge problem, and I would love to see that solved. And I would love to see Osmosis as part of the AEZ kind of like officially as well.
I'd say more concrete coordination mechanisms and incentive alignment mechanisms. I know that's very broad, but for the AZ to succeed, we need to be working closer together as consumer chains and also in coordination with the hub validator set and their stakeholders and Atom holders. Right now, it's way too fluid.
Agreed.
Cosmos Hub has finally turned a new leaf, and there's real DeFi usage today. There wasn't 12 months ago. So we're entering this era where the hub is trying to define itself. It's going through an identity crisis. Who's part of the AZ, who's not? Who do we provide POL to? Who do we not? So answering that question and focusing, I think Elijah's post on the Cosmos Hub forum articulated this very well. Communities, startups, organizations need focus. And so aligning on a common goal, whether that is doubling down on ICS, or doubling down on Atom as money as a store of value and providing POL and the various services that you described to all the chains that do that. Alignment is the first thing, and then take actions to support those chains.
Agreed.
Any final thoughts?
They basically covered it, but I agreed. Like, I think, coordination, like setting objectives and getting all of the things that we need to achieve better coordination within the AZ is kind of like the critical thing that will make or break how successful the AZ is, in my opinion. So
let's make Atom great again.
If I may.
Whoop.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Final plug. If you feel inspired by this conversation, right, by the good vibes we have on this panel and the potential of Atom and AEZ, come and build. Right? We're recruiting for the AEZ Accelerator. Early builders, come. Let's bring volume. Let's bring users. Let's bring liquidity to AEZ, and let's all WAGME together.
And come to the Atom Economic Zone room here at the conference on this floor, I think. All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.